You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the latest episode that we're going, at least the one we're up to, for Strange New Worlds, called A Space Adventure Hour. I'm Tom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Father Jason Tyler. Hey, Father.
Hello.
And Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
Folks, be sure to stick around to the end of the episode. We have more of your great listener feedback. And be sure to share the podcast with your friends. Help us grow this community of Star Trek fans and reach even more listeners. We really do appreciate when you do that. So, Jimmy, can you give us a recap of A Space Adventure Hour?
This week, the Enterprise is heading out to study a neutron star, but on the way there, they're also testing out a prototype holodeck that's mounted in a ship rather than on a space station. Pike orders Security Officer La'an to test the holodeck by putting it through its paces. First, though, she and Mr. Spock continue their dance practice, and it's clear that La'an is starting to have feelings for Spock. She then orders the holodeck to create a detective story that she'll find challenging to solve. It conjures a scenario about a murder set in 1969 Hollywood, and all the characters in the story are played by our series regulars so that they can have a paycheck, but also because the on-screen explanation is the ship only had high enough resolution scans of them from the transporter. In the story, a network executive has been killed, and it becomes clear that the murder was tied to the executive's cancellation of a TV show called The Last Frontier. The Last Frontier is a conscious parody of the original Star Trek, and there are tons of series self-referential jokes in what follows. The mystery keeps getting more complicated, and so La'an decides to call in Spock to assist her. Meanwhile, the holodeck starts drawing more and more power from the ship, as well as blocking communications and computer functions, because of course it does. Which is bad because the neutron star they're studying releases a gamma ray burst and the ship narrowly avoids it. To deal with the holodeck malfunction, La'an must solve the mystery, and she eventually determines that Spock was the murderer, and that the Spock she's been with on the holodeck was a holodeck creation that the program made because she wouldn't suspect him. Having solved the mystery, the holodeck releases the ship, and afterwards they conclude that the technology is too dangerous to recommend, as if we didn't know that already. But La'an continues dancing with the real Mr. Spock. She explains that the holodeck version of him didn't react to her the way the real one does. They acknowledge that they both have feelings for each other, and they kiss. The end.
Father, what'd you think of this one?
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's not my favorite episode. I appreciate the idea of showing us a little bit of the, life behind the scenes, if you will, of TOS and trying to sort of recreate that in a parody type. But we've had so many holodeck malfunctions over the years. I thought, by having something in the TOS era, so to speak, that we wouldn't have a holodeck malfunction episode, but here it is. And I also just had a lot of trouble with the idea of Scotty being portrayed as like not wanting to alert anyone to a problem until he could solve it or whatever. And that just didn't seem, I know we've got a younger version of Scotty here, but that still didn't seem, in character for him. Especially as a Starfleet officer, I assume a full lieutenant at this point. So he's got some experience and such. But anyway, it's got some fun moments, certainly, but also some, just some difficulties, I guess, too.
Okay. Jimmy, what'd you think of this one?
I'm not a fan of this one. One of the things they've done on Strange New Worlds that I think they've done well is actually deliver to us Strange New Worlds. The original series had some comedy episodes like The Trouble with Tribbles and things like that. So I know some fans of Strange New Worlds have said, well, it's different tonally than the original series. And I don't mind it being a little different tonally. It's not that different. They had weird stuff happen in the original series. They had humored episodes, and I don't mind those being present here and being a little more prominent here than in the original series. I don't expect this show to be a clone of the original series. So I've been okay with them like having the episode where everybody sings. I thought that was fun. There have been others that at least were okay, like the fantasy story that dealt with Dr. Mbenga's daughter. You know, like that, I wasn't a huge fan, but I'm fine with that. So I like the fact that they are trying to give us strange stuff on Strange New Worlds. That's good. And I'm okay with them taking risks, like Everybody Sings or whatever it may be. But of the sort of stranger episodes, this self-parody with the holodeck is the first one that I thought didn't land for me. It's not that it's bad all the way through. There's stuff in it that's fine. Some of the jokes are funny, but I thought, why do we need this episode? If you're going to tell us another holodeck malfunction story, what are you going to do with it that justifies its existence? Because I've seen the holodeck malfunction so many times that I need a reason to have another holodeck malfunction episodes and another holodeck malfunctions episode. And I'm afraid they don't give that to us here. Now, it's funny at the end when they say we can't recommend this technology. And Scotty immediately then proposes, but give it its own server room and power supply and it'll be okay. Because that would solve all the problems in this episode, and that would solve all the problems in future holodeck malfunction episodes. So that's good. That's a funny pair of lines, but it's not enough to justify the whole episode. So the only place to justify the episode is what you do while you're on the holodeck itself. And the Star Trek self-parody, I'm okay with that. But it's not enough to justify another holodeck episode to me. It's just a bunch of in-jokes, many of which are not actually that tightly tied to the original Star Trek. And so they don't deliver genius-level self-parody. There are some funny self-parody moments, but it's not genius level. And they're not genius level in how they solve the problem or anything like that. So they don't have any of the elevating features that I would need to sit through another holodeck malfunction episode. So I thought it didn't land for me. This is the first of the kind of, swing hard and go for something big episodes that for me just kind of flamed out.
Yeah, it felt like the idea of let's do an episode that looks like the original series, the sets and all that, the cheesiness of the 60s special effects was the first idea. Then how do we do that? Oh, it'll have to be a holodeck. But we don't have holodecks yet. Well, let's figure out a way to have a holodeck. I mean, it just felt like that was the progression in the story room, that we went through. And it just, you're right, it doesn't really land. And in fact, the story on the holodeck is derivative. It's the same holodeck malfunction we had in Elementary Dear Data, which is La'an prompted the AI, which is what now we have words for this, to give her a mystery that would challenge her skills as an investigator. This is exactly what Data said.
And they did it better there.
Yes.
Because turning Moriarty into a sentient entity is a more creative solution than this Spock who's pretending not to be from the holodeck is really from the holodeck.
Right.
It's like,
Pseudo Spock, the Hollyopogyte, I thought of it.
And I should point out, it wasn't Data who gave the command. It was Geordi. Computer, in the Holmesian style, create a mystery to confound Data with an opponent who has the ability to defeat him. Which, you got to be careful when you give AI your prompts. You got to make sure you put in qualifications in there. And so that was the problematic, and even in that sense, is like you're derivative. It's the same thing.
Also, I had trouble following the detective story because the character who's been killed, Tony Hart, the network executive, is not even alive in the story, and it goes by so fast. I would lose track. It's like who has what motives to kill whom? It just all went by so fast. I thought it was confusing. And now I'm sure I could watch it multiple times and figure it out, but I shouldn't have to.
Yeah, that was one of my notes in there. Is I lost interest in the detective story itself. I'm like, who got killed and why? And okay, well, whatever.
At one point, it became secondary to the to the rest of what was going on. The novelty.
They did have some nice jokes, like, so they have one of the holodeck characters, even though he never appears in the flesh in this episode, is James T. Kirk, just because they have a transporter pattern of him. And there's some nice self-referential moments, like where he's doing this exaggerated William Shatner diction, and it's like,
that was so awesome.
He's saying, "And I am known for my diction."
So I got to say that I love that Paul Wesley, because he has said in interviews he's consciously not trying to do a Shatner when he does Kirk. But I love the fact that he leans into it here. Like he really because one of the criticisms is Paul Wesley doesn't seem like Kirk to me. And so he leans into it, and it's so great. I love that opening sequence. That's my favorite part of the episode, is that that and maybe the credits, where he totally nails the Shatner. I love the set design. It's a huge throwback to TOS. Even the sound design, they have all of the original sound effects from the original series on that bridge. And then they give us the title sequence from the original series for Strange New Worlds. I love that they kind of leaned into that. That was fun to me. I really enjoyed that.
I also like how they parody the fact that the science, especially in the original series, but also later, doesn't really make sense. So you have the holodeck version of Christine Chapel talking about these aliens who are kind of patterned after Baylock of the First Federation from the Corbomite maneuver.
Yes.
And they want the Starship Adventure's brain cells. And the Chapel holodeck says, the holodeck chapel says, we can't give them our brain cells. We need it for many science reasons. Yeah, when it just cells, so you got singular plural disagreement. So there was a lot of fun stuff. One of my favorite moments was actually at the end, where they are showing us a blooper reel of the Space Adventure Hour, and the Kirk character comes on the bridge and tries to do the Riker maneuver where he sits down by hoisting his leg over a chair, but the captain's chair is too tall and he just smashes it over.
Which
and of course,
is
Jonathan
even
Frakes
better.
Was the director.
That makes it even better. I love that. That I had to pause and laugh at that one. That was maybe my favorite sequence in this. That was awesome. Yes. Star Trek is best when it doesn't take itself too seriously, and that was one of the graces of Lower Decks. So that was totally good. Father, you mentioned Scotty's the character. Just he doesn't strike me as that's the Jimmy Doohan Scotty, but he does kind of strike me a little bit as the Simon Pegg Scotty, and I wonder how much that is. That character is what this current actor is heading for, as opposed to James Doohan. I love the original Montgomery Scott, so it's hard to say, but it kind of comes across that way. I like also the fact that they keep finding ways to incorporate Kirk, and Paul Wesley's character into the series organically, like not just having Kirk show up. The Farragut's showed up again, and hey, they just happen to be here next to the Enterprise, and let's get him involved in an adventure. They're doing that more organically, and I like that because I enjoy this Kirk. Paul Wesley is really great.
I enjoyed this Kirk too, although I wasn't a fan of when they brought him in the first time in season 1, and it was just, oh, I'm here and I've got a bunch of other ships that I'm piloting by myself via remote control, and we're the magic solution. That was not great. They're doing better now. So one thing, before we get to the holodeck adventure, we have La'an and Spock are continuing their dancing lessons from Wedding Bell Blues. And I like that. I think that's a nice development. I'm okay with kind of Spock, teaming
Rebound?
up with I was just going to say, with La'an on the rebound from Christine. I'm fine with that. They're doing a tango, which is a very sensual form of dance. And I have in my notes, I just could not, I don't tend to do, I do a lot of dance, but I don't tend to do tango. But I was once taking a round dance class. Round dancing is basically ballroom dancing, except you have verbalized commands. So like diamond turn, you have a caller. It's like ballroom dancing with a caller. And one of the things about round dance is when you take a round dance class, it never ends. They just jump from one dance in one genre to another dance in another genre. And you never like get your diploma the way you do in square dancing of, okay, you've learned all the moves. You don't need to take class anymore. They don't do that in round dancing. They should, but they don't. And so I was taking a round dance class in a particular round dance group. And like a lot of dance groups, it was being held in the hall of a church, just a local Protestant church in San Diego. And our round dance instructor said one night, okay, we're going to be doing tango, which I had not really known in advance, but I'm already here and I don't want to just bail on people. So, especially my dance partner. And so they start having us do this tango, and it's really sensual, and it's so sensual, it's uncomfortable for some of the members of the dance class. And the round dance instructor kept saying, it's okay, we're in a church.
That doesn't make it any better.
Not sure that's making it better. It could be doing the opposite.
Exactly.
By the way, the Secrets of Star Trek drinking game will include anytime we get into a detailed discussion of dancing. That's because if there's something that defines our podcast, that's one of them. I love it. It's great. Anytime dancing comes up in Star Trek or Doctor Who, I know we're going to get something interesting about it, and that's good. So one of the standouts in this episode for me is Anson Mount, because he is Christopher Pike, our hero. And then he transforms into T.K. Bellows, the Gene Roddenberry of the Space Adventure Last Frontier. And he is so different. Like he nails, like he's a good actor, and he nails this different character so well. It is so different.
I also love how they continue to make fun of his hair without even saying a word, because he normally has this quiff, that's very prominent, and he's got just as much hair as the Gene Roddenberry character, but it's in this crazy new design.
Yes. Yes, that was great. The other thing was the Christine Chapel actress, Jess Bush. As the holodeck character, has her native Australian accent. She's actually Australian. The British people and Australians, they tend to be able to do American accents way better than Americans can do British or Australian accents.
Except when they don't.
Yes, except for Benedict Cumberbatch, who is terrible.
Brown.
Right, Barry Brown. Yes, from Doctor Who. I think she did a good job on as a holodeck character too. You're right. Like the whole the mystery, the holodeck, murder mystery. I've seen better ones. Whoever wrote this isn't a Columbo writer. You know what I mean? There's like it's just not a really well done murder mystery. They didn't spend the time to make it a good murder mystery, and it just because in the end, it turns out that La'an is being betrayed by the holodeck program, which is changing the rules of the game, as it went. And instead of it being real Spock, it's a hologram of Spock, which I could tell right away.
It makes it a worse mystery. If the holodeck is changing the rules as we go, that's like, okay, this isn't a real mystery. Then you don't get to change the rules in a real mystery.
Yeah. Yeah. It was weird.
One thing that stuck out at me is, so they've pointed out the similarity between, they do this in particular in the Star Trek movies, but they pointed out the similarity between Mr. Spock and Sherlock Holmes. And at one point in one of the movies, Mr. Spock says, as one of my ancestors said, once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth, which is Sherlock Holmes. That's a classic Sherlock Holmes line. It shows up in several of the stories. And so Mr. Spock is implying that Sherlock Holmes is one of his ancestors, which, you know, I assume is not true, but they make that reference in one of the movies. Although, I mean, he does have human descent through Amanda Grayson, so who knows?
Right, right.
But here they have, and I forget if it's the real Spock or the holodeck Spock, but he says, as my ancestor, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, wrote, the game is afoot. And that was an interesting twist on it, making it not Sherlock Holmes, but Sherlock Holmes's creator, Arthur Conan Doyle.
And in a sense, I mean, he's the one who originally said, and once you eliminate the impossible, you know, I mean, that's the, I suppose it still fits. I do think it was, if the Spock who turned on the holodeck program in the beginning was real Spock and not a hologram Spock, that's who it was. It was that Spock as he walked off. So
but he may have already been a plant by the holodeck itself.
He may have been. There's a weird moment where Hollow Kirk or the Maxwell Saint or his actor.
Yeah, we may as well just refer to them as Hollow so-and-so because no one's ever going to remember their in-game names.
Right. Right, that's true. So Hollow Kirk is this is when we have Hollow Spock and La'an sees something between them, some relationship between them. And I thought, why would he see that with this holographic Spock? Like, what is the program saying about this? And I guess it's because she was wearing some device beforehand that was sort of recording her responses and her body movements or whatever for the Holo program. So maybe the computer picked up on that. Now that I mentioned it, maybe that must be what it is. So I thought that was weird, but okay, that makes sense now.
One line that they had in the holodeck sequence that I did think was quite funny is, so they have our characters mapped onto people who would have been in 1969 Hollywood playing different roles. Like you're an actor and you're a producer and you're a network executive and one is a writer and he gets the line, I'm a writer. I'm never happy about anything.
It was very meta, wasn't it?
That's like, okay, meta and on target for Hollywood writers. Yep.
Yeah, I could picture that in the Strange New Worlds writing room, like throwing that out there going, oh yeah, that has to be in this episode. So, surprise, the holodeck safety protocols are malfunctioning and they can't end the program. It's another one of those. It's a holodeck malfunction, the de rigueur. And Scotty also throws out another, critical failure point. You can't force the holodeck to shut down. It will permanently destroy the Enterprise's computers. That seems to be a bit of a design flaw, that if shutting down a program permanently destroys the computers of this starship that it completely relies on, that seems to be bad. Yeah, so that was another.
Also,
one.
We have this, just to give the rest of the cast a chance to do something. We have this gamma ray burst come from the neutron star they're going to study, and the ship has to do dramatic things to avoid the gamma ray burst. But okay, it's a lot of talk intensely over consoles, and it's like, yeah, okay, I've seen this before. It's not really doing much for me here.
So in our last episode, you mentioned the problems with our first officer, Una, not getting a lot to do. Maxwell Saint gets a line on the holodeck. You know what else isn't realistic? A lady first officer. I thought it was a funny little meta commentary.
For 1969, yeah.
For 1969, yes.
Well, there was that line in the cage, too, right, from Pike about not being comfortable with women on the bridge or something like that.
Right. Man, that Christopher Pike, he's such a misogynist. There is an interesting fourth wall break where we basically have, I think it's Holo Uhura might be addressing the audience, the fans.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think some kid out there is going to see the show and spend the rest of their life searching the stars? You don't think someone can love a piece of art or music or story so much that it heals them, shows them parts of themselves they've never seen before? It gives them hope. A show like this could have gone on forever, given generations of fans a place to be seen, to belong, something to believe in again. It's very meta Star Trek philosophy fandom.
And especially with Uhura, because she was Nichelle Nichols was actually hired by NASA to recruit minority candidates into the astronaut program.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. I wondered if this was a little bit of this little monologue was a bit of a pitch by the Star Trek producers to keep Star Trek going, to the powers that be, because the new Paramount Skydance company, which that merger has completed as we record this, that we need to keep Star Trek going because of all of these reasons, because it has this important place in our culture.
You know what? I this was something else that didn't make it into my notes, I don't think. But one thing that I found myself, so essentially, this is a self-parody episode for Star Trek, and where you have the Star Trek has a show inside the show parody of The Last Frontier. It's kind of like Shakespeare's plays that have a play inside the play that interacts. You see this in Hamlet, for example. And it's an accepted literary trope to do this, but I was thinking, who did it so much better was Stargate. Because on Stargate SG-1, they had the internal parody show in just a couple of episodes, Wormhole Extreme. Yes. And I thought Wormhole Extreme was a much better parody of Stargate than The Last Frontier is of Star Trek. Wormhole Extreme boiled down the essence of Stargate SG-1, whereas the last Frontier is just a jangly series of bits. And when you watch the original Wormhole Extreme episode of SG-1, you have characters like the Samantha Carter equivalent criticizing science in it. What does it mean to be out of phase and stuff like that? And then you have, in the closing credits, you have interviews, which are partly comedic, but then the Teal'c equivalent, who is described as a robot, actually has this insightful, look at the show that is just mind-blowing. And then when their 200th episode, where they bring back the Wormhole Extreme concept and they integrate it into sort of the real world, it's just so much better done than this. So I just thought I'd point that out as a reference point where they're trying to do something similar here. I just don't think they're pulling it off as well.
Yes, it does say Colonel on my uniform.
As a matter of fact, it does say Colonel on my uniform. Yeah.
And folks, if you want much more Stargate, check out our Secrets of Stargate podcast, where they are just about to do the second Wormhole Extreme episode, if they haven't already done it. I forget the sequence of things right now. But definitely. That was their 100th and 200th episodes of Stargate SG-1 that did that. One thing that Scotty does, that is classic Scotty cleverness, is he needs to get a message to La'an on the holodeck, but the communicator's not working. So he embeds this message to her in a piece of film that she discovers and then plays. And in it, it's Scotty who's I'm not sure how he did this. Did he set up another part of the holodeck that he went to? I'm not sure exactly how he managed this.
Yeah. So I thought this was interesting, but wasted, because they've already set up that La'an has realized, I need to solve this program. I need to solve this mystery to get us out of here. And Scotty realizes the same thing. La'an needs to do it, but because the comms are down, he can't just tell her that over the intercom. And so he realizes, I need to create a subroutine inside the holodeck program where I can get this message to her. So we have a pullback where we see the set of The Last Frontier. And we hear the voice of the director, who is Jonathan Frakes.
Yep.
And then the Scotty character with his back turned to us comes up and like hands the director something. And then he turns around and explains to La'an, who's watching all this on a screen, here's what you need to do. And it's like, okay, yeah, but you've already established she knows that. So it's kind of wasted creativity. It would be better if she hadn't realized that she needed to solve the mystery. And then Scotty could give her this piece of information in this creative way.
And I want to reiterate, too, what you said before, Father, just like this idea that Scotty didn't want to turn to others for help because of what happened on the Stardiver. And I didn't quite understand why, like what those had to do with each other. That was murky and not well defined.
Well, they've set Scotty up as, this is a younger Scotty, and he's sort of more defensive than our Scotty. He is really good, but he tends to perform only under pressure. And that's why Pelia in the previous episode runs in and freaks him out to get him to perform. And so I like the fact they're giving him a character arc to become the Scotty we know. But apparently one of the things that's true about the Scotty we know and this earlier version of Scotty is he's holding his cards close to his vest. And even the Scotty he becomes, he quadruples the amount of time it's going to take him to do something in order to provide him, to take pressure off of himself so that he's not giving Kirk a realistic estimate of how long it's going to take. So both Scotties are using privacy and deception to some extent to do their job. And so we just have an earlier version that's kind of even more in that direction and has not learned to trust as much as our adult Scotty has.
Okay. I like that. Yep. And then it just bears mentioning we don't end up having to wait to get that romantic moment between La'an and Spock that I thought was coming. It just came a lot sooner than I thought it would. And we end with them in embrace and kiss and that sort of thing. Any other notes on this one, Father?
Just you commenting on Jonathan Frakes being the voice of the director. So this makes now he's been obviously on Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, Lower Decks, Picard, and now Strange New Worlds. He's not appeared, obviously, on the original series, the animated series. I don't think Discovery or Prodigy, right?
He's directed them, but he hadn't been on them now.
Yeah, right.
He might have had a voice on Prodigy, but we'd have to see. But he clearly beats everybody and being in the most Star Trek series. That's for sure.
Right. I wonder if Majel Barrett kind of comes close, right, with that computer voice showing up at different times and whatnot. But yeah,
it's got to be.
Races ahead, I think, got to be at this point. So.
Although there was one Star Trek series he should not have been on.
Enterprise.
Yeah. The Memory Alpha says TNG, DS9, Voyager, the Star Trek films, Enterprise, Picard, Lower Decks, and Star Trek Very Short Treks. He was in the anthology of animated shorts.
Okay.
Very Short Treks.
Yeah.
So, okay. Jimmy, did you have anything else?
Let's see. I think I did have just, I was interested to, number one in this episode gave us a count on how many people are aboard the Enterprise.
Yes.
She said there's 203, which is less than half the number that were on Kirk's Enterprise, which was 430. And I forget if that 203, it may be based on a line that's in the cage. I'd have to go back and check. But I thought it was interesting that in just a few years, you more than double the number of crew who were on the Enterprise.
I wonder if it's labs and, science crew and that sort of thing. I wonder, curious. Curious.
I mean, they added 20th century historian at some point, right?
I mean, you get plenty of extra people if you're putting 20th century historians on there. What does she do all day? Anyway, so let's get to our listener feedback. This one is a little bit more general feedback. Jeff sent in an email and he says, Star Trek is best when it makes people think. This is particularly true when moral dilemmas arise and are debated on screen, inviting us to challenge our personal beliefs. You are best, it means the Secrets of Star Trek, when you do the same. Recently, you worked through the moral response to deaths related to treating a Gorn infection. You've gone through the Catholic Church's position on several occasions. As a Catholic curious person, I wish you'd do it more, but I appreciate what you have done. Though I'm not in a position to donate funds, I do listen to every episode and so much appreciate your expertise and viewpoints. And in the spirit of what I just said, even when I don't agree with your comments, I often hit pause and reflect on your viewpoints.
Well, thank you. That's really great. And now you've got me curious. In describing yourself as a Catholic curious person, does that mean a Catholic person who is curious? Or more grammatically, it would mean a person who is curious about Catholicism?
It's hyphenated, so grammatically it would seem to be someone who's curious about Catholicism.
Yeah, it's just knowing the flexibility of how people use language. I don't want to presume.
Right.
Yeah.
And he does mention, I wish you would talk about the Catholic Church's position, on things more. And when it's organic to the discussion, I like to do that. I like to make sure we bring that up. I don't like to force it. There's a tendency among all kinds of folks to sort of force discussions from their particular point of view into a discussion. I mean, we are Star Trek fans who are also Catholic, and so when the show lends itself to discussion of these viewpoints, that certainly we don't shy away from it. So,
but we will tell you about tango dancing in a church if it becomes relevant.
we talk about all kinds of things, but yes. But so thank you, Jeff. I really do appreciate your comments. Our next feedback comes from our discussion of the Voyager episode Year of Hell. And Andrew Coulthard Clark via YouTube writes, I argue while DS9 is venerated now, it was initially met with some harsh criticism from TNG fans, and it was only the phenomenon of VHS, then DVD sales, that saw it prevail. Had DS9 been embraced by the mainstream at the time and been as lucrative as TNG, then it's likely UPN would have been prepared to gamble with its flagship series.
I'm not sure that it was VHS tapes that helped DS9 prevail. Because it got its full 7 series expectation at the time. And I'm also not sure of the connection between UPN and its flagship show Enterprise and what impact DS9 may have had on that. But I definitely agree that there were people early on who didn't like DS9, and in part felt it was a betrayal of Gene Roddenberry's vision of Star Trek. To which my response is good, because Gene Roddenberry's vision of Star Trek by Next Gen had evolved into this ridiculous utopian thing that would suck drama out of the series. It's better drama if you can have some character disagreement. And which you had on DS9. And if you had some greater degree of darkness, I'm not saying it needs to be bleak, and I wouldn't say DS9 was, but I think that DS9 is the best of the Star Trek shows overall as a series. But it didn't start out that way. I don't think DS9 really gets good until the 4th season. There are individual good episodes before then. But just like I think Next Gen didn't really get good until the 4th season, I think that's really when DS9 got good too.
Yeah, I agree. There was definitely backlash. I mean, I remember I was there at the time. There was in early days of the online world. There was definitely backlash against DS9 as not being real Star Trek. That quickly changed. In fact, I don't think it even took to the 4th season. I think it got good in the 4th season. I agree with that. I think fans started to embrace it even earlier than that, and I think it's so common, isn't it? I mean, every time there's a new series comes out or of almost anything these days, it's not like the original one. It's betraying its predecessors, and then eventually people are embrace.
Until Next Generation have to endure that kind of
yeah.
So I mean,
Next Gen had the unfavorable. the comparison to TOS. Yeah, so it happens every time. And so, but your point taken is that DS9 was not embraced at first. That part, definitely. And then our next comment from New Jersey Esperantist writes, Year of Hell was one of my favorite Voyager episodes as well. Jimmy stopped short of one of my favorite parts. When Harry and B'Elanna were rescued from the turbolift by Seven, she answered Harry's trivia question. When Harry expressed surprise of her knowledge of Earth history, Seven simply says that the Borg were present at the events during Cochrane's first flight, referencing Star Trek First Contact. Classic.
I remember that from Year of Hell, and I like that too. That was really cool.
Yeah, that's a nice connecting the dots. They weren't contemporaneous, were they? It's an interesting question.
From what I remember, First Contact obviously had come out before that Year of Hell episode, but Voyager as a series had actually begun before First Contact came out, I think, right? So the idea was that basically the Voyager crew would have had no idea about that Borg attack on Earth at that point.
Right, when they left the Alpha Quadrant. Yeah,
exactly. They left the Alpha Quadrant before that happened, and so there really would have been no way that the Voyager crew would have known from any report later from Captain Picard or anybody about the time traveling Borg situation.
Right.
I also like the connection between Star Trek First Contact and Enterprise, where when we, in season 4 of Enterprise, when we go to the Mirror Universe and we have In a Mirror Darkly two-parter, which is entirely set in the Mirror Universe. Even the credits, the opening credits are set in the Mirror Universe. We see the Zephyr Cochrane meets the Vulcan scene. And he pulls out a gun and it's like, okay, we're kicking Vulcan butt now. We just survived World War III. You're not going to fare much better.
Yeah.
yes. That's the point of divergence, I guess, is
actually, I think it's earlier than that because in the credits, we see the history of warfare all the way back to the Roman Empire and stuff. So I think this is just I don't know. I know I've seen some people suggest that's the moment of divergence, but I think the moment of divergence is actually earlier, and that's just an illustration of how things play out differently in this universe.
Gotcha. Yeah. Excellent. Well, thanks everyone for your feedback. We do love getting feedback. Now we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Trek, including Lenny B., Rachel F., David K., Sean S., and Jason G. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest, and you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us this time. What did you think of A Space Adventure Hour? Let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek, our Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, send an email to trek@sqpn.com, visit our Discord community at sqpn.com/discord, or you can watch The Secrets of Star Trek on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the next episode of Strange New Worlds, Through the Lens of Time. Until then, Father Jason Tyler, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Star Trek.
Thanks, Dom.
And Jimmy Akin, thank you as well.
Thank you. Live long and prosper. And as my ancestor, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, wrote, the game is afoot.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest. And remember, I'm a writer. I'm never happy about anything.